the one thing which I've realized, because you guys are also building business, once you leave a corporate role, how little you need to live a good life.
We usually forget that there are many other people who believe in us, right? And that comes down to family mainly.
I think one thing I realized, even before we were taking a decision and after into the journey, it's not only me who has become a founder, right? The whole family has become a founder. At any point in time, I think family becomes a very important part of this journey. And I also believe that because of the family, you probably are also able to push yourself more.
And it gives you additional intrinsic motivation also, right? You mentioned.
I believe the only advice I would give is it's very important that your family, your partners in your personal life really understand why are you doing this.
Yeah, because many people are hesitant, right? Because of they think that, okay, I have a family. But it also shows that they have people around them who support them in this endeavor.
Welcome to the Sandpit Startups podcast, where we journey into the minds of the brightest and the best the region has to offer. We're here to connect the founders in the studio with the founders listening at home. And we sincerely hope the next half an hour or so motivates, educates, or inspires you. And if it does, you know where the follow button is.
Today we are joined in the studio with Atul Bansal, the co-founder of Livlyt, which is a groundbreaking IT platform which supports not only the tech in terms of hardware and software, but much, much more. He has an interesting journey to talk about, all the way from consulting with the likes of KPMG and McKinsey, but also being part of a Scaleup, which is very popular in the region, Careem. And now he's in his own venture, moving things and doing great things also in different parts of the region. So here I am with Atul, and we are very glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me here, guys. Pleasure to be here and looking forward to a very exciting chat.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. All ours, sorry. Oh. Sorry to single you out.
No worries.
So Atul, if we could start maybe with your elevator pitch for the viewers in layman's terms, what are you doing now? What are you working on?
So essentially, Livlyt is an all-in-one platform. We solve the problem of tech for teams. If you think of it, any business, big or small today, needs tech. Mm-hmm. Of course, everyone talks about ChatGPT, AI, but the fundamental piece is many companies are now catching up with how does this new technology impact their business. And when they are catching up, they're investing. They're investing in devices, they're investing in IT, they're investing in upgrading the software. And all this investment comes at a cost. Mm-hmm. For us, we are enabling them to stay tuned to the latest technology the world has to offer, but saving them capital. So our all-in-one platform helps companies to get the right devices, manage them through the IT support, and also control their software spends in a digital way. All the tech your team needs, that's what we're building.
Awesome.
That's amazing to hear, but I would like to know what was the main reason for you to come up with this idea, or was it one of your co-founders? Because it's usually that through, as I mentioned earlier also in the podcast, that it's life experience or work experience which gives you an idea. How did the idea come about of Livlyt, and how has the progress been so far?
Absolutely. I think, so Livlyt's initial idea got inspired with what we saw at Careem. So me and my co-founder, we spent between a decade between us at Careem.
Oh, wow.
In different roles though. Mm-hmm. And there was always this conversation happening, man, we have to graduate from this college. This college has taught us so much, so much confidence, so much ability to build businesses, but we have to graduate with a great idea. I think what inspired us is the way we saw Careem change the way people think about ownership, right? Before Careem or generally the ride-hailing industry, we had this mindset, I need to go from A to B. For me to go to A to B, I need a car. The only way I can have a car is to buy a car, right? And that access to the car actually became a restriction in unlocking opportunities for everyone. Females who could not travel on their own were not able to go out for work. And people who could afford to buy cars were able to travel much farther for work, right? But ride-hailing industry came, Careem came in, they said, hold on, let's take ownership out of the equation. You want a car, great quality car, on demand, anytime, everywhere, right? And suddenly everyone could afford to, let's say, travel in a Lexus. without the actual ability to buy a Lexus, right? And that's how it changed the way people thought about ownership of a car linked to the use case of traveling in a car.
Yeah.
And we felt that similar challenge existed when it comes to the way companies invest and use hardware or devices for their teams. Big companies who had balance sheet, who had money, could afford to buy the latest Apple devices every year, right? They could afford to get any tech which their teams wanted. But SMEs, early stage companies, startups, they have always had a challenge that I have $1,000 in my bank. Should I use this $1,000 to buy a MacBook or invest in customer growth or maybe hire someone to grow the business, right? And because their way of understanding that I need to get access to a MacBook is to own the MacBook, right? And that's where the disparity came in. And we felt that the way Careem changed the way people thought about ownership, there's an opportunity to change the way people think about ownership of devices.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's convenience at the core there. It's not so much that with Careem you're like subscribing to a car, because obviously there are providers that do that. But just on that note, like the last 5 or 10 years, we've seen a massive like emergence of subscription-based platforms. It feels like everyone's taking the conventional solution of ownership or, I suppose just mostly ownership, but then turning that into a subscription type thing. And I feel like that's kind of overshadowing ideas that aren't too great, but people feel like it's a good idea because they're revolutionizing it in this way that like Netflix did, for example. How would you sort of like define, or how, when you're thinking about what ideas can and can't be turned into a subscription model, what would you say like really it really boils down to in terms of like what needs to be a subscription and what should just be left as it is?
I think this is a tough one to answer, because if you think of it, in the personal consumption category, there are still very ownership-driven behaviors.
Yeah.
I want to own my car. I want to own the bike.
Yeah.
I want to own the phone. But when it comes to business consumption, back in the days, you were buying a office license, which was a local software given to you, installed on your desktop. Right? You were buying to basically use it for a year. But now in the B2B context, everything has already moved to subscription. Companies are no longer investing in softwares. They are adopting a pay-as-you-go model. Companies are no longer investing in real estate. Everyone is moving to co-working or the shared working spaces, right? That I can just get a very fancy 100-seater office without actually buying an office. So on the B2B context, every consumption behavior is moving to pay-as-you-go. And that can be in form of a subscription, can it be form of a rental, can it be form of an on-demand. But it's like moving away from putting in money to buy the thing. When it comes to personal consumption, that behavior is still very different, because we tend to own and hoard. Right?
You want that like security of like, okay, now I own this house, now I don't have to worry about it.
Correct.
You still get your mortgage and all that, but you're like, this is sorted, this is settled, I've got my car, we're good. It's comfort. But then when it comes to business, I think the mindset is more like, if we need to change and adapt, we don't want to be like held down and weighed down with like all this ownership of all these silly liabilities, like this massive office, because then COVID comes along and all of a sudden you're not even using the office.
Correct.
It's a non-performing asset.
It's a big
so to answer your question,
difference.
In that way, I think the personal consumption is still a very ownership-driven thing. But if you're building for a segment where you already see behaviors of their openness to adopt an on-demand model, right? In a business context, real estate has been converted to on-demand maybe 5-7 years ago, or even 10 years ago with the launch of WeWork and similar companies, right? And everything else is moving to software has been converted to on-demand or a subscription model over the last 4-5 years. So when you go to that segment and say that, okay, by the way, AWS is also an on-demand example, right? The big servers rooms have now moved to a cloud. Right? So all that categories are moving to that on-demand model. So it's just a matter of time. You say, okay, great. If you think of it as a company, the only fixed asset you have is people and devices. There's no other fixed asset you have.
Correct.
People should always be your asset. And what we are saying is, let's convert this fixed asset of devices into an on-demand as well. So that is how we filter down things to say, there is a user which is already used to the idea of on-demand. Let's figure out what is still a pain point in terms of not converted, and let's convert it.
Coming to think of Livlyt, there are these BNPL, the buy now, pay later platforms also, which allows the customer to split their payments right, over let's say a course of 6 months or 8 months, so their monthly costs are lower, which could be interesting even for those who are startups and SMEs. And now Livlyt comes into the picture. What would be, I would say, your moat, your USP at the moment, which will probably differ you from the Tabbies of this world at the moment?
So from our perspective, fundamentally, subscription model is against buying behavior.
Okay.
Right? So when you buy, I mean, what's your mindset? The mindset is buy, use, discard. That's how the cycle of buying moves, right? And you could choose to buy on cash, you can choose to buy on credit card, you could choose to buy on a buy now pay later, but you're buying and you're using and you're discarding.
Yeah.
But when you're subscribing, you are subscribing, using and recirculating.
Right.
So there's a very different mindset. So the inherent advantage a subscription model has is affordability and flexibility, right? Why do I say affordability? Because you are not paying to own the device.
Okay.
You are paying to use the device, right? So when you're paying to use the device, your per month expense will always be less than your, so to say, installment or the monthly payment which you make. So there will never be a comparison, right? The second part is flexibility. Because remember, when you buy, no one can to take it back. You will always go to the store and you can say, okay, I will buy a new one and you can do a buy now pay later. But no one is going to take back what you have.
The resale is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they are not going to say that give it back. But the power of subscription, the biggest advantage is ability to unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Which is where the flexibility comes in. That you use it, 1 year later something new comes up, or you don't need it. Maybe the colleague from who you bought the device is no longer with the company, right? And this is an idle device. Why do you pay?
Right.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But the best companies that are doing subscriptions actually have manufactured friction into the process. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to unsubscribe from Amazon Prime, for example. There's like 20 steps in that process. They're like, are you sure? Here's a discount. Here's like 5 months free. It's like, goddamn, I could have been like getting this for free all this time. But they like put in all these friction points to stop you unsubscribing because I think it's like, it's hard to like obviously it's hard to get a new customer, but it's quite easy to lose them. You only need to mess up once. So, I mean, there is that perceived like, I can just unsubscribe anytime, but they kind of know what they're doing in terms of like keeping you hooked.
So the other part is the customer the human behavior is we always want options, but not necessarily exercise them.
Yeah. Right. Feels good to have options, right?
You need to feel good to have options, and the empowerment happens that I have an option. Whether I will choose it or not has a lot of factors to be decided. And that's like the whole USP that you have an option. Whether you will choose it or not is up to you. We don't influence it, we don't discourage, we don't encourage. Right? But we are giving an option.
And when you look at like these different plans of these subscriptions, you have options. There's like A, B, C, D.
Right.
But there's always one that they want you to go with. It's like best value and like all that, you know, like all the stuff that really makes it, okay, actually this one seems like the best option for me. But realistically, it's like, because they make all the other options.
See, the uniqueness about, I understand subscription in the software space or services space, there is a lot of customer parallel which can be drawn. But the uniqueness about what we are building from a subscription perspective is that nothing like this exists. Right? In our region at least. Right? So the customer education is part of our mandate.
Okay.
The customer doesn't come with a specific mindset that give me 4 options and I will choose. We actually have to do a lot of consultative conversations to say, what is your use case? Right? Do you need a device to long use, or you need a device because you have a contract job, right? Which essentially will be no longer, this project will finish in 6 months. Right? So that is where we then start recommending solutions which will help them solve their use case.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're in this really exciting space where you're the first ones to do this. But at the same time, everyone is quite prone to and everyone's quite familiar with what a subscription is. So they come with this, and we saw it like a lot with a lot of startups saying like, we're the Netflix for, and we're the Uber of, which was like beat to death. But like, they know what a subscription is. They know what they're getting themselves in for. But at the same time, it's a space that no one else is offering. Is that good for you? Like.
So, like I said, it's good for us, and at this we have as we finally joke, we have a first mover advantage and disadvantage.
Right. That's always the case, isn't it?
This is because we are building the market.
You have to educate the market also,
and which kind of helps sometimes, but it also becomes a disadvantage because customers don't trust the solution. They don't have a benchmark to compare, right? And also from a potential partners or even like all kind of partners, maybe investors, partnerships, or strategic deals, they don't have a benchmark. So they can't assess you or your ability that how big this can become because someone else already did it. Right? So this is what we play in, but we find a way in this environment.
We've had a couple of clients where they've been first movers in certain areas or amongst the first movers. And when we do our market research, because we're doing digital marketing for startups, we look at the competitors and we're like, oh, okay, these guys are doing this as well. These guys are doing this. We speak to the founders and they're very often like not too worried about it. And the reason being is because they're investing all this money. Both parties are investing all this money into market education. But what it really boils down to when they make that decision is like, who's actually better? And so long as you're confident that you're better, you'll most likely win overall.
Correct. So then the other part is, what are we building? Because is the idea to build the biggest device subscription platform in the region? Maybe that is one of the things we will achieve. But as you evolve, the customer tells you the other pain point which they need to solve, right? When we initially started, we felt that we need to enable customers to get access to devices for their team in the most affordable and the most flexible way, right? Subscriptions is the answer. But when we got into the journey, customers started to come back to us asking for not only when they get the devices, but what happens to those devices once they're using it, right? Which is the post-subscription journey. The device needs to be set up. There has to be provisioning. Something goes wrong with the device. This employee is sitting somewhere remotely, took the device and the device has stopped working, right? So these are not originally part of subscription use cases. We gave you a hardware on subscription and rest you manage. But then they came back to us, man, I'm having these challenges with the post-sale, as you call it, right? And we started to basically build a solution around it. And then now, the other part came in, okay, I mean, we have solved the device. We are trying to help them manage the subscription part of it and the services. But then let's look at the workforce in general. What is the tech for a workforce? Tech for a workforce is devices, IT, and software. Right? And many a times now customers are coming back to us asking for, okay, you gave me the device. I agree. I mean, I can come back to you for any IT issues, but what about software? Right? So this is how the evolution happens.
Do they want you to like come into the business and do the work for them too? I don't know how to use this thing.
So here's the thing, right? IT or these things, the example I gave of ChatGPT or initially, right? This is something which everyone knows is important to the business, but is never able to prioritize for the business, right? It is always treated as a cost function. Something will go wrong, we will fix it, right? Let's get the easiest way out. If you want a software, someone goes and subscribes to it. But no one kind of looks at whether it is being used or not. What is the utilization, efficiency, whether I need it or not. So it's a pain point which exists. And once you have a conversation, people will realize. And that's what is a very exciting part for us, that our solution is so universal. Anyone can relate to it. And of course, we don't do their job, but we tell them that we are here so that you can do your job.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And I see that you have evolved from hardware as a service, and you've seen many other pain points, and you see more opportunities to expand and move into those product lines. And I'm sure that might have turned a lot of heads, especially in the startup ecosystem. And now, if correct me if I'm wrong, you're a part of 2 different cohorts of accelerator programs. You're there with 500 startups, which is there in Saudi, and also Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi. So how are you first managing being part of both? I'm sure you're frequenting a lot in terms of flying, but how has these participation in these kind of accelerators helped the journey so far and your co-founders?
Absolutely. I think when we generally look at accelerators and when you're building a business, you need all the support you can get. It takes a village to raise a child, right? And for us, being part of these accelerators is becoming part of those ecosystems which can help us to eventually scale faster, build better. So for us, the journey had been so far very, very, I think, encouraging and rewarding. These 2 accelerators in the region are probably the top 2-3 accelerators which any startup founder or owner look for. And both of them individually offer great advantages and value to their portfolio companies. So we are very blessed in a way that we got opportunity to be part of both. And we are using that ecosystem to deliver on our mission in both the markets.
Right.
Right. Generally, the way I look at accelerators is, if you are a young startup founder, typically you need to be very clear what your objectives are when you are looking for an accelerator. Are you looking to build a network? And a network of experts, mentors, potential hires, people who have done this before. Right. Are you looking to enter the market, a new market which you don't know of, and this ecosystem will help you to learn the rules of the game? Are you looking to get your first customers, right, or partners in that market, or you are just looking for investment, right, which is the demo days and all the initial funding happens.
Or the glamour also which comes with it,
right?
Yeah.
So as long as you are able to, in your mind, very clear that why are you joining it? Sometimes it is access to the market, sometimes it is access to the funding. You will make the right choices. And I think with both these great names, we are able to access all the 4 objectives we want to deliver.
Nice. So, a lot of founders start from ground zero, right, and start building their product, or let's say. But what that means is they don't have the experience at the scale-up stage. Obviously, you've come from Careem, and it's kind of like you've had exposure to that part where it's just rapidly growing. What does that like? What have you taken from that when starting your own thing? Do you know where I'm getting at there?
Sure. I think I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
What my time at Careem helped me to do, and I think let me talk about what I was doing prior to Careem as well. Prior to Careem, classical corporate guy, worked with a couple of big consulting names. I mean, it's a quite seasoned, regular career. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you have a certain view of the way world works, the way you basically communicate, the kind of work you want to do. Joining a scaling up startup essentially allows you to first unlearn a lot. It's very important to unlearn because if you come to it's like trying to drive on a racetrack, but not with an F1 car, but probably bringing your cycle. Right? Okay. The rules of the game are very different. So you need to unlearn a lot. So that is one part of it which kind of really helped us even when we moved from Livlyt, from Careem to Livlyt, is that whatever we thought we knew from our Careem experience, we unlearned.
Okay.
Right? This is one part of it, right? Because you don't assume anything, you'll unlearn. Second part is a very big mindset of figuring it out. The hustle, I think it's a word which is very commonly used, is often considered as, I think I will say after hello, this is the most commonly used word I kind of come across. But being part of that scale-up journey really tells you that what is hustling, right? And sometimes you adopt that as a mindset without really knowing, oh, this is called hustling. This is me. This is how I do it. But do you have a name for this? Oh, this is called hustling. Right. So this is what that journey taught us. And the other part is from organizational building perspective, because Careem was at such a stage where I had the 5 years, I saw it moving from, let's say, a Series B, Series C company to a potential acquisition, pivot to a super app journey, and then scaling and everything, right? I kind of learned a lot in terms of how do you build great organizations from a leadership perspective. Right? What is the value of culture? What is the value of a team? Right? How do you lead?
What are the core aspects to having a good culture, would you say?
So for me, the core aspects of having a good culture is like amazing focus on transparency, right? Things are good, everyone should know things are good. Things are bad, everyone should know things are bad, right? The second part is lot of empowerment, right? High degree of ownership, right? Unless people believe they are part of something big, they will not do the things which you want them to do, right? Or they will not learn to basically figure out the things. That is my role is A to B. Now I'm stuck at B. That's it. You come and tell me what needs to be done after B, which is one way of working. Other way is, oh man, there is C which is also possible. Right. Let me figure out how do I go from B to C without anyone telling me or asking me that we should go to C. So that, to answer your question, from a culture perspective, empowerment and transparency is what drives great teams in my view.
And you said you had to unlearn a lot. Like, could you give us an example of a time where you had to unlearn something from Careem when it came to Livlyt?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, in reality, for whatever it was, we were part of an organization. There was a lot of support, different functions, where you could basically rely on your colleagues to do it. Right? When you are building your own business, day one, two of us in a room, everything has to be done, right?
Yeah. Where'd everybody go?
So that part of it is that we are here and we are the only one here.
Yeah.
So do it yourself. And that kind of changes the mindset in terms of how do you unlearn and figure out no job is big or small.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
And Careem also, I believe, has a great culture, because many of the successful startups that we see here, Careem has been a feeder to them. That, for example, you being a prime example, but there are many others also who have been successfully raising funds in the region and doing well. So it shows something about the culture that Careem has. And would you say that your consulting background is probably helping you now with the startup more than or with Careem, or is it an amalgamation of these couple of things? Because I'm sure you have unlearned a few things, but there are some prerequisites that are needed from those fundamental foundations that you had from Careem and the consulting.
So definitely, I think consulting and being part of a startup is a great combination to have. Why? Because the consulting typically is built on first principles approach, where you come into any situation, you try to assess the situation or the problem by asking the right questions. Right? You ask the right questions, you frame your hypothesis, you kind of create a vision out of it, some solutions, and then you go out. In consulting context, you then tell someone else to do it, right?
Yeah.
That this is my assumption, but that's you guys should do this. When it comes to part of a startup or execution, where essentially you are doing that, but you're doing it also, right? Which means that what you think should be done, you're not expecting anyone else to do it.
Yes.
You do it.
Yes.
And then you learn, and maybe it's not working, go back, figure something new, and go back and execute, right?
Yeah.
So this is a great skill to have, because when you're building a business, on one side, you are able to think of a bird's eye view that what problem I'm solving, right?
Yeah.
What I want to build, what talent, right? Why this should work. And on the other side, you can get into the deep customer execution of how. How will the customer journey look like?
Right.
What should be the policies, right? What will be the pricing? So the what and how comes very beautifully together. And the other part, if you think of it, the knowledge of what is very important when you're doing all the external communication. Right? Because if you are speaking about your brand, you're speaking about to investors, you're speaking to potential partners, potential hires, you don't tell them, this is how we do it. You always talk about, this is what we are doing.
Right. That's the difference.
So this is, for me, I think that helps a lot. And of course, it's not only me. We have a very amazing team as well, which kind of complements every thinking, challenges every thinking, but definitely helps in a way.
Yeah. So I was speaking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and I was telling him all about what Careem is. I don't know how it came up in conversation, but he couldn't believe that here in the UAE we have something called like a super app, like this lifestyle app where you can just do everything from your laundry, cleaning, you know the rest. Like you can do everything on this app. It just got me thinking, like, I don't think necessarily Careem would have worked in the UK. Like they just don't have it, and I'm not really sure why. But when a lot of people move here and start up a business here or do anything like a startup type of project, I think there's like this sort of certificate you need of just knowing the region. Because for whatever reason, Careem works here, but it might not work somewhere else. And that's the case for like a lot of brands as well. And we've spoken to other businesses too. Like, for example, Urban Company had to pivot quite a lot in their offerings when they came over here.
Yeah.
What would you boil it down to in terms of like why this region is the way it is? Like, from inside looking at Careem, like why did that work so well?
I think this region is no different. I can put it the other way around.
Okay.
What works here will not work in UK.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And what works in UK will not work here as well.
Yeah.
But one flip side to that is that people from the UK, when they'll move here, they will use the super app. Yeah. So that transition happens. So it's just about what's the gap in between. And I'll let you fill that gap.
So from my understanding, what works in this region is there's a lot of localization which needs to happen. That's one. And the second part is, if you're building a business, you have to at very early realize that who are you building it for?
Okay.
Right? Is your customer like someone who is an average customer in all the 14 markets in the region? Or is your customer someone in the best economy of the region, which is in our country, right? And which has a very different expectations and understanding of the world compared to someone in Egypt.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
So what are you solving for? And if you have that mindset, then you will build a solution which works for masses. And that's, I think everyone should be doing it. There is a very unique analogy, and what Careem has done is nothing different from typically how franchise businesses have been built.
Okay.
If you look at it, fast food chains, right, burger chains,
Yeah.
their menu in US will be very different from the menu in the region,
Yeah.
or the menu in India,
Absolutely.
right? Which is localization.
It is. It's true.
Right? And this is what even tech businesses do.
Yeah. I think they sell snails in McDonald's in France.
And then KFC in India has a vegetarian option.
Really?
It's like goes against their name, right?
Yeah.
So that's localization for you.
Kentucky
That's-
Fried Vegetables.
So, no, I completely resonate with you on that point. Well, in the hustle of things, we usually forget that there are many other people who believe in us, right? And that comes down to, I would say, friends, of course, but family mainly, whether it be parents or spouses, because it's a difficult journey in itself, and we need all the support we can as entrepreneurs. How has your family support been for this? And it must be a transition from a corporate job to being an entrepreneur, and it might be a sudden change per se for some. But how has your experience been so far?
I think one thing I realized, even before we were taking a decision and after into the journey, it's not only me who has become a founder, right? The whole family has become a founder. Because suddenly you realize that whatever is on your mind is always business, and suddenly the family time gets converted into business conversations, right? I always thinking, talking either about any issue in the day or what you need to do tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? So it rubs a lot on the family. For sure, this journey, and depending on what stage of the life you are in, if you're a bachelor, you are married, you have kids and other people to take care of, at any point in time, I think family becomes a very important part of this journey. And I also believe that because of the family, you probably are also able to push yourself more,
Right.
Because it is no longer more of a situation,
Single player game.
single player game, and you are not in this mindset that okay, this doesn't work. I always have other things to do. The later you are in your journey, the more stakes are higher, right? And you essentially become all in. And there is a stats, right? Most of the successful founders, CEOs have started their companies post 35, 40.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And my assumption is part of this is because they went all in. There was no plan B.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason there's no plan B is because you are not going all in. You're taking 5 people with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how I look at it, that family or people around you play a very important role, and it rubs off. And you are not only making it, I mean, it's not only you who are making, so to say, compromises when it comes to
Correct.
your lifestyle.
Yeah.
That rubs on the family as well. And they sign up for it. So yeah, without family, I think this journey cannot be that exciting.
Of course. And it gives you additional intrinsic motivation also, right? You mentioned. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, you can have high days and low days. And when you come back home, perhaps you don't have to worry about things at work. You can open up, whether it be your spouse or whether it be a better half in any shape or form. So that definitely helps the journey, because as you know, it's a mental game also for entrepreneurs. There's competition outside. There is investors, stakeholders that we need to keep happy. So it is not easy as it seems, although from an outside perspective, people think that, okay, it'll be $1 billion company, but there's so much effort, there's so much sacrifices that happen in between.
That's for sure.
And can be done alone. It helps when you have someone along with you in the journey.
Yeah. What advice would you give to those that are embarking on that journey or about to, and they're like, maybe they have like a girlfriend, wife, or even kids in a full-fledged family? What advice would you give them so you can keep that relationship healthy?
I believe, the only advice I would give is it's very important that your family, your partners in your personal life really understand why are you doing this,
Right.
what is your motivation to do this, and what will future look like
Right.
if things go right.
Mm.
So because this is a very important decision, and that's part of the risk taking as well, right?
Yeah.
So you need to basically communicate very transparently that this is what your passion is, this is what you're building, this is the scenarios it can play out, right? But I want to do this, and I'm sure the family then signs up along with it.
Yeah.
But communication and the clear
Yeah.
why is very important.
And you're talking about like personal reasons why, right? We're not talking about, talking to your wife like, yeah, I want to enable loads of businesses to outsource their tech. Like, we're talking about personal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because many people are hesitant, right? Because of they think that, okay, I have a family. Should I venture into a business right now? The stakes are high, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But that also again shows the entrepreneurial DNA for those who take that risk, but it also shows that they have people around them who support them in this endeavor. So I think so that's it's privileged position to be in, and I'm really excited to see what Livlyt does, and
Yeah, it's funny you give us that stat about the success rate of like 35 to post 35, post 40, when like that seems like the worst time to get things going when you've got a family. It feels like maybe when you're younger, it's the best time to start something. But
See, I don't think there's a right or bad
Right time, right?
Yeah.
But the way I have thought about it is that whenever you get a conviction on an idea, right? Many a times ideas are dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Everyone wants, oh, this is a great idea I have, but I will not share with anyone.
Yeah.
Or someone will steal it.
Yes.
Right? Or sometimes people have this mindset, oh, this is a great idea. Let me do something on the side. If this kind of takes off, then I might switch.
yeah,
But if you're super convinced, right? Then the first thing you have to do is go all in.
Yeah.
And if you are convinced, then you probably will be able to
Convince others also.
convince others, even personal,
Yeah.
on the personal side and on the professional side as well.
True.
yeah,
It can never be a situation where I
On the
have
fence,
something,
right?
and if this works
Yeah.
out, I will do something. If it doesn't work out, I have a plan B. Right?
I like the burn the bridges approach. That once you cross the bridge, you just burn the bridge so that you don't go back.
Yeah.
You'll have to figure things out along the way.
yeah. There was some leader that like burnt his soldiers' boats.
Yeah, I've heard.
That's
read the
actually
story.
how the Spanish colonization happened in Latin America.
Ah, was that that?
Yeah, so there was 300 people, and the general burned all the boats and said that we only go back here when we've conquered this continent.
Did they?
Latin America now for you? Yeah.
Ah, really?
So that's how you have all the Spanish-speaking countries there.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's the right approach, I guess.
See, eventually, it is all about execution.
Yeah.
Right? There will always someone better with more money, more resources, better background, better pedigree. Doesn't matter. I've had so many instances in the early days where someone says, "We want us to sign an NDA for us to talk to you about what you're building." No, I said, "I will talk to you now. Take your notes.
Yeah.
If you want to build it out, go and build it.
Yeah.
I don't care."
Yeah. NDAs are silly. It's like, if you need to sign an NDA, I think your idea might be too easy to do. Like, if you're really that concerned about someone stealing it, then it might be just too easy to steal. And someone, as soon as they see you doing it and finding success and traction with it, they'll just come and steal it.
But Sam, I think the people, as founders, we often tend to confuse ourselves. What's your strength?
Yeah.
Is your strength the idea, or is your strength the execution?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? If you believe your strength is the team and the execution,
Then you don't need NDAs.
the idea is, everything is public,
Yeah.
right? Anyone can get inspired from the biggest next $1 billion business in Europe and
sure.
launch it here.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And there is some crazy statistics out there that 7 people think about the same idea on any given day across the world.
Really?
Yeah, so you're not the only one thinking about the same idea.
Business ideas.
Business ideas.
Oh, wow.
So it's never that. As you mentioned, ideas are a commodity. It's the execution that is priceless. And that's the way forward, because of course you will have competition. Careem had competition with Uber, but there was only one which dominated the market here. So that's a prime example.
That's funny, like when Neuralink comes out and all that stuff, right? It's like all those 7 people form together to be this like dream team. They've got the exact same idea. Rather than being competitors, they can like
No, but then they could have compatibility issues.
Yeah. Cool. So, look, Atul, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I think our time's just about up, but thanks so much for sharing your experiences.
Likewise. Thanks for having me here. Great chat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.